Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. Recently, some Iranian opposition groups tried to duplicate the famous speech of Martin Luther King known as I Have a Dream, signifying that they're inspired by his civil rights movement. Let's compare and contrast the Iran's protests of 2022 with Luther King's civil rights movement. There are 5 big differences between the two social events. 1. The nature. The civil rights movement had deep roots in the African American society. It was like a robust tree with extended roots in the hearts of all Black Americans who had suffered from discrimination and racism for hundreds of years. In fact, King's movement was supported by the vast majority of the African Americans and even some white Americans. But Iran's recent protests look more like a grassroots movement with short and weak roots in the Iranian society. They pretend to be the representation of the majority of Iranians. However, during the last 50 days, millions of Iranians have repeatedly protested in more than 100 cities of Iran to show their rage and disagreement with the rioters. And they also demonstrated their strong support for the Islamic Republic and its supreme leader. 2. The leadership. Dr. Luther King was an educated man, fighting sincerely for the Black Americans' rights, not for his fame and power, and he was never supported by any intelligence agencies. On the contrary, he was under the surveillance of the FBI, and it's been said that he was assassinated by the intelligence community of the United States. But about Iran's recent protests, first of all, I need to tell you that they don't have one specific leader. There are several guys and groups who claim to be the main leader of the so-called revolution. For example, the son of the overthrown Shah of Iran, the notorious terrorist group known as MEK, the separatist Kurds, the ISIS, the LGBTQ community, various inside and outside opposition groups, and several activists all try to seize the leadership of the recent protests. But the fact is that they're all just some puppets of the CIA, the Mossad, and several other intelligence agencies which are the main leaders of the recent protests in Iran. 3. Methods. Dr. Luther King's movement was absolutely nonviolent and peaceful. He was inspired by Gandhi and his idea of nonviolent activities. However, despite of their peaceful and nonviolent march, the police attacked the unarmed protesters on the Edmund Pettus Bridge over the Alabama River, and the event became one of the many bloody Sundays of history. But the story in Iran is completely the opposite. The so-called protesters are equipped with different kinds of cold and hot weapons. They have semi-automatic firearms, and they are trained to make Molotov cocktails. During the past few days, the protesters have killed more than 40 and injured more than 2,000 of Iranian police officers and security forces. They even burned the body of a policeman. They also attack and harm their civilian countrymen and innocent children. Their main method is vandalizing the country's infrastructure and people's property. This is not a protest. This is a riot. This is brutality. And still, in the press and media, they insist to hide under the disguise of a peaceful civil rights movement. 4. Demands. Dr. Luther King and his companions demanded the right to vote. Even after the Lincoln's famous Emancipation Proclamation, the African Americans were systematically deprived of the voting right. And after 300 years of discrimination, the Black Americans really had no choice but to fight for their civil rights. But in Iran, there are about 10 different races and ethnicities, like Turks, Lurs, Kurds, Arabs, Persians, and so on, and all of them have had the right to vote from the very first day of the Islamic Republic. And all races and ethnicities in Iran are absolutely equal in civil rights. Then what do the rioters want? Unfortunately and surprisingly, they want nudity and prostitution. They associate nudity with women's rights, disrespecting the religious society of Iran and openly breaking the law. Even in the most liberal countries of the world, nudity and prostitution have some legal limitations, and if you break the law, well, obviously the cops will arrest you. We Iranian women are free. We do not need extra rights. We do not need more freedom. We are already free and we can study, work, exercise. We can have political and social activities even much more freely than some other women of the world. Perhaps you don't know that thousands of years before the Islamic Revolution, the ancient Iranians used to wear hijab. Even before the reveal of Islam in the Zoroastrian era, hijab was the indicator of people's social status, especially for the Persian royal families. Wearing a white, long headscarf was an essential part of the Zoroastrian tradition. The existing petroglyphs of Persepolis prove that the ancient Iranian women wore a headscarf with pride. Another evidence is that it's impossible to find any naked sculpture or painting from the long history of the Persian Empire. So hijab has been the main part of the Iranian culture even before Islam and ages before the Islamic Revolution of 1979. Therefore, the death of Mahsa Amini, which was due to her old brain disease, and the code compulsory hijab were just an excuse for achieving their main goal. So what's their main goal? I tell you now. 5. The ultimate goal. All of the efforts of Dr. Luther King and the other leaders of the black movements were just to achieve the equality between the white and the black citizens. The African Americans were, and still are, fighting for their undeniable rights. They just want equal rights. But the ultimate goal of the rioters in Iran is to disintegrate the country. Because after more than 40 years of crippling sanctions, the Islamic Republic of Iran is still moving forward, gaining remarkable achievements and playing a significant role in the region. Needless to mention the tempting geostrategic location of Iran and its endless gas and oil reserves. Then the only way and the last plan to stop Iran and to plunder its natural resources is to start a civil war and to break up the country. They even published their dream map of a broken Iran. However, their last plan is also doomed to failure, because the Islamic Republic of Iran is like a robust tree with deep roots in the hearts of millions of Iranians. Thanks for your attention, and have a good time.